Have you ever wondered why some women seem drawn to you in subtle, quiet ways, but never say it out loud? Why a girl keeps glancing at you from across the room, but when you finally approach her, she acts cold or disinterested? Why you feel invisible in one group, but later hear through a friend that someone couldn't stop talking about you? You brush it off. You assume you imagined it, that you read the signs wrong, that maybe you're not that guy. And deep down, a part of you believes you've just never been the type that women really want, not the way they want the loud, confident men who take up space and dominate attention. But what if you were wrong? What if the problem isn't that you're unattractive, but that you never learned to see how women communicate attraction? Because the truth is, most men miss the signs, not because they're stupid, but because those signs aren't designed for you to notice. Not consciously. They're indirect, subtle, instinctual, and most of all, deniable. She needs it to be deniable, because her status, her image, her power, even her safety, depends on it. You're more attractive than you think, but the system you were raised in trained you to doubt it. Think back. How many times have you walked into a room and felt a shift, like something unseen turned to look at you? The hair on your arms rose, not because someone said anything, but because your body felt it. That's not random. That's biology. That's what ethologists call preconscious social signaling. Your nervous system picks up micro-expressions and eye movements before your mind registers them. That's the real game, the one you were never taught to play. But then you speak. You try to confirm it. You say something and suddenly the vibe collapses. Her face changes. Her eyes shift. She pulls away, mentally or physically. And now you doubt yourself. You go home thinking you're delusional. You beat yourself up. You decide you're not attractive because the validation didn't match the feeling. But what if she was testing you? What if the moment you spoke, she wasn't disappointed? She was scanning you for weakness. Women don't fall for looks alone. Attraction isn't about a symmetrical jawline or perfect hair. It's about how you carry what you are. It's about presence, self-trust, boundaries. Women test for these things in milliseconds because they're wired to protect themselves from weak men, unstable men, overly eager men who'll collapse the second they're challenged. So when she pulls back, she's not necessarily rejecting you, she's measuring you. She wants to know, are you easily shaken? Are you seeking approval? Are you trying to perform attraction instead of owning it? If you flinch, she loses interest. But here's the part most men never realize: just because she walks away doesn't mean she didn't feel something. It means she couldn't respect what she felt. Because you didn't respect yourself enough to hold it without needing her response. You don't have to be the loudest guy in the room. In fact, sometimes the most attractive man is the quietest. The one who says little, but watches everything. The one who doesn't interrupt the conversation to prove his worth, but holds eye contact just long enough to suggest he knows something you don't. That's tension, and tension not talking is where attraction lives. But most men sabotage that tension. They joke too soon. They explain themselves. They fill the silence. They try to be agreeable, relatable, nice. Not because they're bad men, but because they've been taught that validation must be earned by compliance. So they smile too wide. They text too often. They say yes when they should say nothing. And every time they do, they bleed attraction. They don't notice it happening. They only feel the rejection after it's too late. You keep wondering why she doesn't chase, why she ghosts, why she keeps coming close, then pulling away. And you blame your looks, your height, your income. But that's not the problem. The problem is that you don't believe you're attractive, and so you move like a man who's still asking for permission. The women who once glanced at you, who paused a little too long in conversation, who played with their hair or bit their lip or laughed a little too hard at your dry joke, they weren't imagining that. And neither were you. But they were waiting for something. They were watching to see, would you lead? Would you stay calm? Would you remain rooted in yourself even when they tested your certainty? You didn't need to impress them. You needed to hold your frame. And that's where your power starts. You don't need more compliments. You need more clarity. Because the reason you still doubt your attractiveness isn't because women never noticed you. It's because you never learned how to respond when they did. Nobody told you that attraction isn't a performance. It's a pressure, one that builds in silence, in eye contact, in the space between words. But instead of holding that pressure, you were taught to diffuse it, to make her feel comfortable, to prove you're safe, to earn her affection like a boy begging for a gold star. So you became agreeable, overly polite, desperate not to offend. You started mirroring her values, nodding too much, agreeing too quickly, making sure she never had a reason to reject you, and in doing so, you became invisible. Not because you weren't attractive, but because you refused to risk being seen. Here's what women feel but rarely say the second you chase her comfort. She loses the impulse to chase your presence. Because presence is pressure, and attraction is built on tension, not comfort. You think you're being kind when you rush to reassure her, when you give her your full availability, when you over-explain your intentions so she never misreads you. But what you're actually doing is bleeding power. You're showing her that you're more concerned with how she sees you than how you see yourself. And that tells her everything. Women want a man who knows who he is without asking her to confirm it. That doesn't mean arrogance. That doesn't mean pretending. It means certainty. The quiet, grounded, unshakable kind. The kind that doesn't beg. The kind that doesn't collapse under the weight of her silence. Because here's another truth: silence is a woman's most powerful tool. It's how she tests men. It's how she separates the ones who panic from the ones who lead. If she texts you, and you write back 3 paragraphs, she knows. If she takes hours to respond and you double text with, hey, just checking in, she knows. If she pulls back emotionally and you rush to fill the space with reassurance, she knows. She doesn't hate you. She doesn't even necessarily lose respect for you right away. But she loses attraction, and she'll never say why. Because from her point of view, it wasn't something you did. It was who you became in her presence. Do you understand that attraction isn't just built on looks? It's built on the version of you that she sees in that moment. If you become smaller around her, more compliant, more eager to please, then no matter how handsome, successful, or kind you are, she sees weakness. And women don't desire weakness. They pity it. They mother it. They tolerate it for a while. But they do not crave it. You don't need to play a game. You don't need pickup lines or manipulation. You need to unlearn the belief that your value depends on her response. Because the second you place her attention above your self-respect, you lose both. Women are more intuitive than you think. They feel when a man carries internal authority. They don't need it explained. They sense it in how you walk, how you look at them, how you sit with your own silence. They notice when you don't flinch. They notice when you're not trying to prove anything. They notice when their tests don't shake you because you weren't waiting for their approval to begin with. The most attractive men aren't the ones who get all the girls. They're the ones who move through the world without asking for permission, who live on their terms, who smile slowly, speak with precision, and disappear when disrespected. Because they know they're the prize. You don't need to be loud about it. In fact, the louder you are, the more insecure you look. Real presence is quiet. You don't broadcast it, you radiate it. You don't need to convince her, you let her feel it. And if she walks away, you don't chase. You don't beg. You don't explain. Because you weren't performing to begin with. That's the shift. That's the difference between a man who wonders if he's attractive and a man who knows he is. Attraction isn't built in the mirror. It's built in your absence, in the space she feels when you're not chasing, not asking, not explaining. That's when she wanders. That's when she replays the moment. That's when your presence lingers. But most men can't stand that space. They can't hold it. They fill it with noise. They reach out too soon, laugh too loudly, say too much, all because silence makes them feel unworthy, unchosen, rejected. But it's not rejection, it's opportunity. Because in that pause, a woman decides whether she misses you or forgets you. And that decision is made in your absence, not your presence. It's made when you walk away and don't look back. You want to know how attractive you really are? Watch what happens when you stop trying, stop performing for her, stop giving her your time like it's cheap, stop rewarding half effort with full commitment. You've been handing out the best of yourself to women who haven't earned you and then wondering why you feel discarded when they disappear. It's not your face that's unattractive. It's your frame that's invisible. You move like a man who thinks love is something to be negotiated, who believes attention can be secured through niceness, patience, emotional labor. And the worst part, you were told this is how a good man behaves, that this makes you worthy. But worthiness doesn't work that way. A woman doesn't desire you because you prove you're kind. She desires you when she feels something primal, undeniable, unspoken in your presence. And that has less to do with how you treat her and more to do with how you treat yourself in her presence. Do you diminish yourself? Do you second guess? Do you act smaller to make her comfortable? Do you pretend you're indifferent to your own standards, just to keep her around? Because the moment she senses you've compromised your center just to win her, you've already lost her. You keep waiting for signs that you're attractive, but the signs have always been there. You just didn't believe them. You told yourself it didn't count unless it was obvious, unless she said it, unless she admitted she wanted you. But women rarely offer that directly, especially to the kind of man who can't hold power without spilling it. You need to understand what you've become to women: the safe one, the soft one, the one they call sweet and respectful and easy to talk to because you're non-threatening, because you're passive, because you don't challenge them to feel something deeper, darker, more alive. And then you watch those same women chase men who don't try half as hard. Why? Because those men don't ask. They walk into a room and take up space without apology. They speak when they have something to say, not just to fill silence. They don't force attraction. They don't beg. They don't plead for second chances. And they don't tolerate lukewarm energy. Those men aren't better looking. They're just not performing. And that makes all the difference. When you stop performing, something shifts. Your tone changes. Your posture changes. Your energy stops leaning forward and starts pulling back. And suddenly, women start looking at you differently. Not because you're doing something new, but because you've finally stopped doing everything that made you look weak. That's the irony when you detach from needing attraction. You become more attractive. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're no longer betraying yourself for attention. That's what women sense. And they don't tell you this. They can't tell you this because it's not a conversation. It's a reaction. It's instinct. It's the way she suddenly slows down when she sees you, the way she tilts her head slightly, the way her smile lingers just a second longer than necessary. She may not even realize she's doing it, but your body notices, your gut knows. And this time, you don't chase it. You don't rush to confirm it. You hold it. You let it hang. You stay grounded. Because now you understand attraction isn't a spark you beg for. It's a fire you hold within. You've spent years assuming you had to earn what others were born with. That if you just worked harder, looked sharper, spoke better, smiled more, understood her deeper, then she would finally see your worth. But here's the brutal truth you were never told. Attraction doesn't reward effort. It rewards energy. Not energy that chases, explains, or overfunctions, but energy that centers, the kind that says, I'm already whole. You're welcome to join, but I'm not moving off my path to drag you with me. This is why the guys who don't try so hard seem to do better. It's not because they're careless, it's because they're not dependent. They're not trying to fill a hole with her attention. They don't need her to affirm their value. And when a man doesn't need a woman's attention, her attention wants him. You think that's unfair? That's biology and psychology and ancient survival instincts layered into modern behavior. She doesn't want to save you. She wants to feel safe in you, not emotionally babied, not over-explained, but grounded, steady, unshakable. But you've been trained by school, by media, by wounded men to believe the opposite. You were taught to be emotionally available on demand, to prove you're not a toxic man, to listen without boundaries, to confess too soon, to open your chest and bleed before she even asked for a drop. And then you wondered why she ran, why she pulled back, why she wasn't ready or needed time or was just confused. She wasn't confused. She felt your imbalance, your overinvestment, your desperation wrapped in kindness. She didn't feel chosen. She felt pressured to choose you back because you didn't give her space to come forward on her own. You filled every silence with need. You thought your vulnerability would make her stay, but it only made her feel responsible for your feelings, and that's a burden no woman wants to carry. You weren't unattractive. You were uncontained. A man who cannot contain his own emotions will never make a woman feel secure in hers. That's what no one told you. That's why you kept losing even when you were doing everything right. You keep asking, what's wrong with me? But the better question is, why did I ever believe I had to try this hard to be chosen? Because the truth is you were always enough. You just didn't act like it. Not in the moments that mattered. Not when she tested you. Not when she got quiet. Not when she withdrew. Just to see if you'd collapse. And collapse you did into apologies. Long texts. Last-ditch explanations. Dinner invites. Self-loathing. Overthinking. Anything to regain control. But attraction doesn't respond to control. It responds to certainty. Certainty doesn't chase. Certainty doesn't overtalk. Certainty doesn't need to be rescued from self-doubt. And certainty isn't something you're born with. It's something you build every time you refuse to betray yourself just to keep someone interested. So when she goes quiet next time, you don't panic. You don't rush in. You don't change your tone to match hers or reread the last message 100 times. You let her be silent, and you stay still because your stillness is power. It says, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to beg. I'm here, solid, rooted. You can come closer or you can walk. Either way, I don't move. And that's when she feels it. Not just attraction, but respect. Because that's what every high-quality woman is scanning for beneath the surface. Can this man hold himself? Even when I withdraw. She doesn't need your perfection. She doesn't even need your constant attention. What she needs, if she's worth a damn, is your presence without submission, your strength without noise, your care without collapse. That's how you know you're attractive. Not by how many likes you get. Not by how many women swipe right, but by how many feel your absence when you pull away. If she doesn't notice you're gone, it wasn't real attraction. But if she circles back quietly, days or weeks later, asking something mundane, like, hey, how have you been? That's your confirmation. Not that she missed your jokes, but that she missed your center. And now you decide not based on desperation, but based on standards whether she deserves to come back in. This is where the shift happens. Right here. When you finally stop asking, am I attractive, and start asking, what kind of man do I become when I stop begging to be seen? Because that's what real attractiveness is. It's not decoration, it's not attention, it's not external validation. It's who you are without an audience. When no one's clapping, when no woman is leaning in, when your phone is dry, your inbox is empty, and your worth is still intact. That's power. You've spent your life thinking women validate your value. That if they want you, you matter. If they choose you, you're worthy. But that was never the truth. That was training, soft conditioning, fed to you by broken systems that needed compliant men. And you bought it. You became gentle, over-accommodating. You suppressed your edge to become palatable. You put women on a pedestal and called it respect. But deep down, it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being judged. Fear of being seen as anything other than a nice guy. And in that fear, you lost the one thing women truly crave: masculine presence. You keep hearing the term alpha thrown around like it's a costume, but it's not dominance, it's direction, it's not arrogance, it's alignment. A truly attractive man knows who he is, where he's going, and what or who fits into that vision. And everything else he releases it without anger, without begging, without explanation. That's the man women remember. That's the man they talk about long after he's gone. Not because he chased, but because he walked away with silence and standards. So if you want to know how attractive you really are, stop asking, start observing. Watch how people adjust their tone when you stop over-explaining. Watch how women soften when you hold eye contact without smiling. Watch how the energy in the room shifts when you walk in fully aware of your worth, but needing nothing from anyone. That's how you know. It won't be dramatic. It won't be loud. It won't come with applause. It will be felt in whispers, in glances, in hesitation, in stammered texts and delayed responses, not because they're uninterested, but because they're disoriented. They don't know how to handle a man who's not asking to be liked. And now, you don't need to be liked. You don't even need to be loved. Because you've built something higher than approval. You've built respect for yourself. And that makes you immune to manipulation, immune to the hot and cold games, immune to the passive-aggressive punishment so many men fall into when they don't understand their own value. Now you're not reacting, you're choosing, you're observing, you're deciding who gets access not based on fantasy, but on reality. She has to show up with consistency. She has to bring value that matches yours. She has to enter your world without expecting you to shrink to fit hers. Because you don't shrink anymore. You expand. You expand by being calm, by being direct, by walking away from disrespect the first time, without second chances, without negotiation. You expand by knowing the energy you bring is rare, and the woman who recognizes it truly sees it, will never risk losing it again. She won't play games. She won't pull away to test you. She won't confuse you, because the woman who is ready for a grounded, self-possessed man will move toward you with clarity, not noise, not chaos, not manipulation dressed as passion. And if she doesn't, you won't wait around hoping she figures it out. You'll keep walking, not to hurt her, not to teach her a lesson, but because you're done abandoning yourself for crumbs. You're more attractive than you think. You always were. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.